Hi everyone, it's Ramzi. If you're struggling to set up your agency project software, you're in the right place. In this video, I'll explain you how to streamline all your agency's processes in ClickUp, from structuring your workspace to automating your processes to tracking and monitoring your team's success. This video will be split in 3 chapters. In the first one, I'll explain you how to properly structure your ClickUp Workspace for your agency's needs. Then I'll dive into leveraging ClickUp's automation features to create templates and SOPs your team can follow. And finally, we'll go over tracking your agency's success with customized dashboards in ClickUp. Now, if you're new to ClickUp, I recommend first downloading my ClickUp mini course through the link in the description and watching my ClickUp tutorial series. This video assumes you're familiar with most ClickUp features and will be taking more of a power user approach. Don't be scared, you can follow along, and feel free to pause and go back and forth between the video and your actual ClickUp workspace. Now stay till the end of the video. If you want to fast track setting up your workspace structure and automations, I'll share with you some extra tips and a huge gift to get you started with ClickUp. Now if you're ready to set up your ClickUp agency workspace, let's go. When you set up ClickUp for your agency, the first thing you have to make sure of is that you got the right structure. And I'm going to go right into that little diagram right here. And there's a metaphor I like to use when I talk about setting up a ClickUp workspace for business. Now, to me, a ClickUp workspace is like a temple. It's made of 3 components. The base, what's the layer that makes the company keep working? What's the base? What's the admin that's behind? All the financials, all the recruiting, everything that helps the company operate properly. Which then brings us to the operations, the actual delivery, our output, the value we provide. And to create a solid system in ClickUp, it's made of 4 pillars, which we'll talk about right after. But what you have to remember right now is that the delivery is the pillars of your temple. And now, final point, what makes your business grow? What will make you touch the sky? And it's basically the roof of that temple, the growth. What makes you grow further, the marketing, the sales, what makes you get more prospects and convert them into clients. Now let's get started with the structure. When it comes to the structure, as we've seen, it's made of 3 pillars: the growth, the delivery, and the administration. If we start with the growth, what helps us get clients, it's basically made of 2 items. A marketing space where you're going to track all the lead acquisition, the way you get more clients. It's about inbound marketing. It could be social media, it could be blogging, but it could also be outbound, such as Google ads, meta ads, how to reach out to more clients. Next, we have the sales space. And the sales space can be made of a project list, an account list, and a contact list. It's basically your CRM right in ClickUp. And I can prove you that you don't really need to have an external CRM. If you're a 6, 7, or even 8 figures agency, you can literally manage your client pipeline in ClickUp. Now, this contacts list, it's optional, and you'll see that in the setup I'll show you in ClickUp. It's not appearing because you don't really need it. It's more to track your leads and your prospects. But you can easily track all your client emails and information straight in your projects, and I'll show you how. Next, we have the delivery. So the delivery is, once I get those clients, how do I make sure that I go as efficiently as possible into finishing the projects that I sell them? So it's basically made of 2 folders, one for the ongoing projects and one for the closed projects. Now, there's a big debate in ClickUp whether a client should be a list or a client should be a folder with different lists as projects. I prefer to structure clients as lists and put projects as tasks with up to 3 or 4 levels of subtasks for each project milestone and the steps to go through it. And I choose this direction with my clients because I think it eases up the navigation on the hierarchy on the left, and usually you don't really need to have a list per project, because imagine you have 10 clients and you have 2 or 3 projects for each. It's going to be 30 different lists to create and manage and handle with different automations and templates, so it quickly becomes a mess. Whereas if you have 10 clients and 3 projects each, you could just have 10 lists, 1 client equals 1 list, that's easy to remember, and just 3 main tasks with different subtasks. And I'll show you how you can automate this and make this as streamlined as possible right in ClickUp. And now, final step, how do I make sure that my company strives and survives? Now, we have the growth, we have the delivery, but we have to comply by a few things. We need to hire a few people sometimes. We need to track the financials. We need to make sure that we send our invoices to our accountant, that we manage the end year accounting, and all these kind of things. I'll be showing you some examples of admin types of spaces, such as a finance space, where you're going to track all your financials or your finance to do, and an HR space, where you're going to track your recruiting, but also your current day-to-day HR. I'll show you the possibilities of the software through this, but obviously this structure has to be tailored to your way of working. You don't necessarily need a finance to-do list. You might need something else in admin. That's really how I help my client and where I help my client. This is a standard example, but if you want to go further and have something tailored, you can just book a discovery call with me through the link in the description, and I'll help you out strategize around how to structure ClickUp for your agency. With that being said, let's dive in right in ClickUp. As you can see, we have 5 spaces, as we said: sales, marketing, delivery, people, admin, and finance. Let's start with sales. I'll put that one on top. And for sales, I've created a very lightweight, a very simple CRM. It consists of 2 lists: deals and accounts. Now, if you want to add a contacts list, that's also possible. But just so you know, you can do quite a lot with just deals and accounts and store your contacts information into the deals. So you're going to put the contact of the actual person that's buying from you in the deal. If we open up that deal right here, we can have the email and the contact name stored right in here. We don't need to store this somewhere else in a contacts database. And I'll explain you why it's useful right after. Let's start with the deals list. I've added a few custom fields. So we have that deal information right here. And we have the value of the deal, the product, the account, the email, the contact name of the person. It's literally built like a CRM. We have contact information and data around that deal that we're selling. And as you can see, we have different statuses for our deal, and we can view this in the list view, but you can also view it in a classic client pipeline, like in most common CRMs. So you can have statuses with open, proposals, lost, ongoing. You can display that data right here, and you can move your deals from one status to another. This is the base of our CRM. This is where the deals are stored. Now, as you can see right here, there is a link with an other database. There's a relationship with the database of our accounts. That's where we store all our client accounts. We can say that social media campaign, we're doing it for Google. And that setup of ClickUp, we're doing it for Wayne, etc., etc. So you can link those clients to those deals. Now, this is the base for our CRM, and I'll show you the second list. The second list is the accounts list. That's where we store our client account information. And we can store different information like the account manager. We could potentially add the deals that are linked from this side as well. We can see the total of deals, and that's actually a rollup custom field, and it sums all the deals that we have in our deals list. So you can see the sum. If we have several deals going on for Google, it adds up right here, and that's super useful to know if it's a large or a small account. And you can actually sort your accounts with their value as well. We could also store the address of that client. We could store the tier if we have gold, silver, and bronze client, depending on the value of the deals that we have for them. So say this one is bronze, this one is a silver, and this one is a gold client, and this one is, say, a bronze client. You can group this by tier, for example, so you can really organize things the way you want. As you can see, very simple, very lightweight CRM. It offers the actual features of a CRM as well, because if we open up those tasks, you can see we have a thread right here, the activity of our task. We can take notes on the client. We can store some standard sales script right in the description, so that we have a template of a sales script that we conduct with our client, with all the follow-ups, all the scripts, so that none of our sales misses our process. We can also send some emails, as you can see right here from that right area. And we can even automate that. I'll talk about automations later, but we can say that once the status goes to ongoing, there is an onboarding email that's sent to the client. That's what makes ClickUp very powerful as a lightweight CRM. As you can see, you probably don't need more than this. If you're a 6 to 8 figures agency, you can probably handle all of that in ClickUp. This was just a glimpse at the CRM, but if you want to know more about how I built it and how to create all of these automations, you can have a look at the video that I published on how to set up your CRM in ClickUp. Let's move on to marketing. Marketing is where we're going to store all our inbound and outbound. We have inbound right here, all the content that we create. Basically, inbound marketing is about being online, about creating contents and assets that rank on SEO or on blog posts, on social media, to make sure that your brand exists on the internet. And outbound is going to the customer. It's actually saying, hey, I'm here. It's like a billboard but on the web very often in modern companies and modern agencies. So I've split it that way and I've called it content and ads, but it's basically inbound and outbound. Let's start with inbound. We have different lists right here. We have a list for all our blog articles, and if we open some of them, we also can store the content of the article. We can store in the task, so that's quite powerful, so that in the future you don't have to tell your copywriter how to write a blog article. Once that's saved in the task and saved as a template, it's there once and for all. Now, I have a dedicated video on how to create SOPs in ClickUp and what's my favorite way to create SOPs in ClickUp. So if you're interested about building strong processes, you can have a look at that one right after this video. We have our blog articles, they go through different statuses. We have our newsletter, they go through different statuses, same principle. We can open it up. As you can see, we have an SOP as a comment this time, and we have the content of the newsletter article in the description. Next, we could also store our social media content in ClickUp as well. We can store our LinkedIn post. We can store our Instagram posts. We can create some new ones. So I've created a second post right here. And as you can see, I have a publishing custom field. So I can fill that information here, and I can even go to my calendar view here on the top, and I can display that as a calendar. So ideally, you can imagine you can have a very advanced content calendar right here. You can display the platform where it is. You can also display the assignee if you have different people writing your blog posts. You go right here on the settings panel and you customize it the way you want. So that's quite good. The calendar view is very useful when it comes to managing posts or to managing events. In our case, we're in content. Next, let's move on to the ads. The ads folder is made of two lists. So one to handle Facebook ads and one to handle Google ads. I could split it differently. I could potentially have a single list to manage all my ads and have subtasks for Facebook and Google. It really depends how advanced your workflow is in ads and how complex your ads are. If it's very complex, you might want to split that into two lists. Otherwise, you could create one single list potentially. Now, if you have a look at the Facebook list, we have two different ad campaigns coming up. We have a process, for example, with subtasks on how to do it. If we open it up, we have a description. Again, my tasks are filled. Potentially, I can save them as a template. We'll talk about that right after. We're done with marketing and sales, and now let's talk about delivery. Delivery is probably the heart of ClickUp. It's probably one of the most important places for your business. It's where you operate. It's where you make sure that you deliver fast to your clients. It has to be as efficient as possible. You need to leverage those templates, those automations, and I'll show you how to do so later. But basically, it's made of a folder where I can store my contractors list, and I'll talk about that right after in the automations. A folder where I'm going to store all my ongoing projects. And if you open some of them up, we just have a workflow for my project with different steps, assignees, start and due dates, and we can add them potentially, as I told you, to the list where we have our designers. We can have estimates, we can have time tracked. We can also store a batch to work in different batches of 1 week. I talk about the batch method in another dedicated video, so you can have a look at the agency playlist. We can basically split that up. As I told you, one client equals one list, and same for the closed folder. We can store the clients we were done with in our closed folder and just keep them as an archive. So that's how I do it: contractors, ongoing projects, and closed projects. Now let's wrap this up with admin and finance. So how I would do it is that I would create a to-do for the admin and a to-do for the HR. And in there, you could potentially put recurring tasks. Very often, admin work is very recurring. It's repetitive. Every month you have to do something. Every year you have to do something. Say you're in finance, you have to go through your invoices and collect them monthly. And you have to do an accounting closure at the end of the year, for example. You can have those tasks and you can use them as recurring tasks. So you can potentially make that recurring and say that monthly invoice collection, I want it to be recurring monthly and the same day each month, and create a new task each time and create it on schedule. Now in the options, you can turn off comments. I always say that because I don't want it to get the previous comments that are very often related to the actual previous month task. You want to turn that off and update status to do and click save. So that makes it a recurring task. We can give it a due date each month. On the last Friday, it will create a new task. Then we have the yearly accounting closure. We can do the same. We can set it to recurring, yearly, create a new task, and say on schedule and update it to do. That takes a little bit of understanding. There's actually a dedicated video on how to set up recurring tasks in ClickUp that I did, so you can have a look at that if you want to. As you can see right here, same principle, we have recurring tasks, and we can see it's recurring because we have those little arrows next to the due date. The good thing with the recurring task is that once you've made them recurring, you can give them a description, you can add some subtasks, so you can update them. And on the next reoccurrence, it'll be created with that exact same setup. So you'll have the same subtasks, you have the same description. That way you can really create a recurring process around your monthly collection or your yearly closure, around your financials. And you could do the same, for example, for HR. We have a list for HR right here. We have a yearly seminar preparation. We have recurring tasks as well. I love recurring tasks for very repetitive tasks. I'd rather create a recurring task than a template when it makes sense. And now I'm going to wrap the structure up. And my last point about the structure is about creating a recruiting system, a hiring system. And the way I do it is that I usually create two lists, one where I store the candidates for my jobs and one where I store the positions for my jobs. So here we have positions, HR assistant, financial analyst, social media manager, etc. All these jobs are open at my company. Now, if we go to candidates, you can also store them right here and have a relationship between those candidates and their position. So we can say this candidate is tied to this position. This one is actually applying for operations manager, and so on and so forth. And you just edit those positions right here, and it actually links it to the department that's stored somewhere else in ClickUp. So it requires for you to understand the relationships and the roll-up custom fields, and there's a dedicated video on how it works. And I actually made a template on how to create a hiring folder. You can have a look in the description, it's stored right there. And it gives you a quick start on how to set up a very lightweight recruiting system. What I love about this system is that it also offers a pipeline. Same way as CRM, you can change the statuses of your contacts. What I love about this system is that it also offers a pipeline with a table view, and you can view your recruiting pipeline right here. Potentially, you can change your statuses and it will display in the pipeline, and you can just do it by opening up the task or just by dragging and dropping the tasks. Just drag and drop it, and you can follow through your pipeline. You can make it more or less complicated. Obviously, if you have a complex hiring process, you need to go through 2 or 3 sets of interviews. You can display that in your workflow. Now we're done with the structure, and let's move on to the next step of creating an agency system. I'm just getting back to my diagram right here, and I'm going to talk about the 3 components of a strong agency system, an automated agency system. You might think of automations as just ClickUp automations, if you know about that. But for me, real automation is built upon 3 items: a solid documentation, solid templates, and obviously the ClickUp automation to leverage them. When it comes to documentation, you want to create a company wiki and you want to create a team wiki. You want a company wiki because you want to store all the high-level information, and a team wiki because some teams want to work on their own processes, their own documentation, and they don't necessarily want to give access to everyone. That way you have 2 levels. And always store your wikis as a view. That's quite important. I like to store my company wiki in the everything view and my team wiki in the space view of the team. Next, we have templates. So I'm going to show you a few examples I already have. So we'll go very quickly through this one. And finally, we have automation, and I'll show you some examples of automation to make your workflow much faster, to save you from pulling off templates or changing statuses or reassigning tasks. Let's start with documentation. I just got back into ClickUp, and we're going to start with the documentation. I've created a document right here as a view in the everything level, and I recommend you to do that for your company knowledge base. Now, you can build your company knowledge base the way you want, but basically I recommend to store your high-level information, onboarding with the code of conduct of the company, the benefits, the holidays, etc., so that any newcomers just go through it and understands how they can work at your agency. You could also store your systems, softwares, and tools, the updates for your company, a template library where you're going to store all the templates on how to write down an SOP, the different resources of the company, one-on-one meeting templates, and ClickUp training. So you can have some sort of training on best practice of each ClickUp feature, how to use the inbox, how to use the home, the notifications. And what I actually like to do is to put a video and then describe a written SOP. I always recommend you to have a video type of SOP and a written type of SOP, because some people have a visual memory, some people like to follow through a video, and some people like written content and taking breaks and going back and forth with the written content. That way you're making sure you're talking to every type of learner. And AI software allow you to very easily turn your video transcript into an SOP. That's what I love. That's what I usually do. I have my written transcript and I prompt the AI to turn it into a process. Now, if you want to have access to that template, you can access it through ClickUp Master, my training program on how to level up on ClickUp. The link to ClickUp Master is in the description. You can have a look right there. And it's also a template that I set up for my clients and I customize for them. Now, that's one type of wiki, but you could also create a department type of wiki just for marketing or sales or delivery. And in this case, you just store it as a view right here. We have a wiki for marketing and we can store different informations right there. I recommend to have maximum one document at workspace level and one document per space. That way, you're not going to get lost. Otherwise, you might find yourself with hundreds of documents and it's a mess to go through documents in ClickUp. I recommend you to use one single document and to have pages and sub-pages for them. You can go very deep in levels, so you can have a very complex documentation in one single document. Now, moving on to the templates, I've shown you a few examples, but I'll show you a little bit of a more advanced example of a template. I've created a web agency client system right here. I actually talk about how to build a template that's complex like this one with a lot of dependencies in my video on how to optimize your delivery in ClickUp. But basically what you have to remember is that you can have very complex SOPs and steps through each step of this template, making sure that you don't miss any of the client milestone. And that way, once you go through a project with automations, you can just pull each of these steps in your agency project and make sure that you follow through each of these steps and you're not missing on anything. To me, building a template for your delivery and even for your sales, like a sales script, I can show you this example as well. It's essential if you want to be able to systemize ClickUp and eventually get out of your operations as a founder or as a project manager, and eventually get out of your operations as a COO. So here we have a sales script, for example, and your sales manager doesn't have to brief anyone. It's just stored and written right there, and you don't have to repeat yourself 1,000 times. That's why I love templates. And once you're happy with the template, what you can actually do is either you save the template as a list or you save it as a task. Because this template is very advanced and this actually combines the web agency project actually can trigger only the SEO part or the analytics part or the web design. I've saved each and every one of those tasks as task templates. I've right-clicked right here, got into templates and save as template. You can also update existing templates if you do any edits. And that way you can call out those templates in your different projects. So that's why in a client project like this one, we have each of those steps called out. And that's what makes it very, very powerful. I'll talk in detail about how to create those templates and how to automate them and systemize them in the dedicated client delivery video. Now, templates are one way to automate things, but as I've told you, you can have much more advanced features. Now, templates are useful, but once they're combined to automations, it becomes amazing. We're going to see an example of an automation we've done right here. I have a few of those templates right here. We have a project template, and what this says is that once I create a list with a project in this space, it's going to apply the web project template that I've just shown you. And then once I add a tag such as website design, it'll create the subtasks for that project. Let's have a look at how it works. I just got right into this client and say for this client, we're going to do a new website project, website Hermione, and then it's going to trigger through the automation the right template for designing a website. First off, it's going to trigger the onboarding and offboarding. You can see it right here. The onboarding and offboarding are triggered. Now, I didn't go into detail into how I built this because it takes a little bit of time, but just know that if you watch the video on how to level up your client delivery, you'll learn and understand how to do this. And once that's done and we have the subtasks, we also want to trigger a product called website. I'm just going to add the tag that I just shown you called website, and it's going to create in a few seconds that subtasks with the website actions to take on. As you can see right here, it created a subtask with the web design, set up the project framework, implement the design system, build components, etc. And what I love is that we can see it right here. We can see it appear in the list view, but we can also see it display in the Gantt view. And because it's all set up and prepared, we have already pre-built dependencies between tasks, and we can create some new between the onboarding and the offboarding. I'm actually gonna make it zoom to fit. And then we have the offboarding right here. And what's amazing is that if we were to reschedule the project, it all moves at once. in one go because we have templates and we have automations that have triggered those templates to make sure that we have a pre-built roadmap for our client. That's what I love about ClickUp. It's really powerful once set up properly. As you can see, it has subtasks right here. You can go very deep. You can go up to 4, 5, 6 levels. I don't recommend beyond 3 or 4. I always try to stay at 3 and 4 when I really, really need to. So that's one way to automate things. Second way to automate things is, say we want these specific actions on web design to be outsourced to a designer. But the thing is, we don't want them to see the whole client roadmap because there might be some hidden information, some confidential information for the onboarding or from the offboarding. So I just want them to see this specific task. What I could do is create an automation. I always create my automations at the highest level possible in the space. And I'll create a new automation that basically says, when you add a tag and that tag is design, then please add the task to the list in the delivery folder. I'll click create. And I always like to name my automations. So I'll go right here and name it outsource to designer. And I'll get back to my client project and I'll just add that tag. So I'll add the design tag, and you know what? I'll also do it for the other project. I'll add those tasks for my designers. And what happens is that those tasks for which I've tagged design, they will pop up right here. They will appear for my designers list. And the designer doesn't have to see the whole hierarchy. Keep in mind, you can give them access only to that design list. And that's where it's super powerful to use the add to multiple list and the automations feature. Now you can see the designer sees this, he knows which project it's tied to, and he can open up that task and see the information about the task, what he has to do, etc., etc. One last type of automation I can show you is automatically reassigning tasks. So that's a very classic, very useful one. And basically says, if the status changes to say review, then please reassign the task to the reviewer, the regular manager, for example. And that could be me, for example. And let's try and see how it works. We have a few tasks right here. Say this one is to do by Diane, and say she does it. Now, if I were to open up that task, it should pop up with my name in a few seconds. As you can see, ClickUp has just triggered the automation right here, and I'm assigned automatically. That's the power of automation. And if we get back to our diagram, you can understand that leveraging the combination of documentation, templates, automation can allow you to create SOPs, to call out those SOPs in tasks, to create templates, to create automations, and to combine all of those to really put your agency on autopilot. Now, one last part I want to show you is the dashboards. The dashboards is the last piece of the puzzle. It's what makes ClickUp an all-in-one solution. It's what makes it very different from other software, because other softwares usually offer very good task management, average dashboards, and no documentation. Or they offer very good documentation, very good task management, but they don't offer dashboards. ClickUp is really an all-in-one software. They market themselves as an all-in-one solution, and they're getting closer and closer to the truth because it's improved quite a lot over the last month. To wrap up this video, I'm just going to show you 2 examples of dashboards of how you can track everything I've shown you in ClickUp. First dashboard is going to be our sales dashboard. I got right back into ClickUp and I've created a dashboard for sales. So in that dashboard, it pulls the data from the CRM I've just shown you earlier, and I can track all my won deals, ongoing deals, the number of deals, the lost deals, the hot leads, the average deal size. So all of these KPIs, these key metrics are tracked here. I can track the deals over time. So if new deals come in, they should increase. I can also track the cycle time. So that's the time between the deal is open and the deal is closed on average. I could have a list of my hot leads, of my ongoing projects, and basically like pop up all the ongoing deals, go through them, potentially send an email straight from my dashboard. So it really makes ClickUp a full-on lightweight CRM, because not only you can track your deals, you can also have a dashboard, have an overview for them. And as a manager, as a founder, it's super useful. Now, second dashboard I'm going to show you is the best practices dashboard. The best practices dashboard is a dashboard that lets you see if your team is actually using ClickUp well or not. Now, it's not looking very well in this delivery team because everything's increasing. And that's basically the amount of tasks that don't have an assignee, an estimate, deadline, or a due date. On top of that, you can also track how your statuses are moving. So I'm having more and more open tasks, not a great sign right here. I'm having an unbalanced task by assignee, and I especially have quite a lot of tasks that are unassigned. I can also see that some people are not reading their notifications. Some people have overdue tasks, and I can finally see that some people are working very well on ClickUp and are adding comments and completing tasks, and some others haven't even logged in. So tracking these best practices at a space level or even at the whole workspace level will let you know if ClickUp is actually being used and if you need to improve on a certain practice. Because if you see that all your tasks are assigned, but that they don't have an estimate or they don't have a due date, then you can know on which point to focus on and push everyone to add a due date or to add an estimate, and if you need to do some capacity planning in ClickUp. Now that wraps up our video on the ultimate ClickUp setup for an agency. I hope this system is clear. I hope you got to understand how you can build it. I've really gone through the overview of it. It's quite complex, takes some time to build, and obviously you can build that yourself with all the videos you have in my playlist, but I can also help you out. We can go through a discovery call where I'll understand how your agency works, how I can help you out, and how we can systemize and create a solid structure for your ClickUp setup that serves your agency operations. Because keep in mind, a great system is useless if you don't have good operations, and it also works the other way around. Even if your operations are top-notch, if you haven't optimized it with a great system, you're wasting time and your delivery is probably not as efficient as it can be. I believe operations are essential for a successful agency because a lot of people help you out on how to find leads, how to get more clients, and that's great for your turnover, but that's useless for your profit margin. Because if you manage to take a lot of clients and you can't handle very solid operations, your profit margins are going to be thin, and you have to create a solid system to have good profit margins, eventually exit your operations, and even sell out your agency if you want to. Because with a good and clear system, any employee or any buyer will be super happy to work with you. As promised, I have a gift for you to thank you for watching this entire video. It's a template called Agency Master that will let you start building your agency workspace in ClickUp. It contains a complete agency hierarchy that you just saw, some standard operating procedures, some automations, and task examples that you can use as a base to kick things off for your agency in ClickUp. Now, if you want to get your agency to the next level with an optimized setup, you can book a discovery call with Upsys. As of now, the call is with me, and during that call, I'll aim at understanding how I can help your agency and ramp up your operations without needing to hire some extra staff. We'll explore ways to make your team work more efficiently directly within ClickUp. So go ahead and book a discovery call, and I'll see you next time.